Hello, everyone, and welcome to Life After the Military, a show completely focused on strengthening the mental fitness of veterans and their families, helping them transition from military to civilian life, and helping them overcome adversity. Our show is powered by Pivotal Moments. Go check them out at pivotalmoments.org to learn more. My name is Lee Elias, and I am joined as always by my good friend and co-host, Howie Cohen, and we are privileged to have Colonel Retired Jeff Worthington with us today. Colonel Worthington served in the United States Army for close to 30 years. He entered the Army as an infantry officer after graduating as a distinguished military graduate from Texas Christian University. Jeff branch qualified as a signal officer and served the remainder of his career providing a wide range of communication support in the various airborne, special operations forces, and a high-profile organizations that included Joint Security Agency, the 18th Airborne Corps, and Joint Special Operations Command at the White House Communications Agency. After retiring from the military in May of this year, 2021, Jeff took his current position as Senior Director, Public Sector Industry Business Solution and Strategy for CrowdStrike. Jeff also recently created his own company, 59 Solutions, LLC. Jeff, we're happy to have you here today. Welcome to Life After the Military.
Hey, thanks. I really appreciate it. I thoroughly appreciate the fact that you're giving voices to veterans to help others who are going to go after them.
Trust me, Jeff, the honor is all mine. It's one of the reasons I wanted to be on this show, is to serve those that have served us. And I really mean it. It's a privilege for me as a co-host to be here talking to you. And speaking of that, it's going to jump us right into our first question. We said it in the open. You served in the U.S. Army for close to 30 years, providing tactical, operational, strategic communications, and supporting multiple airborne, special operation forces, and other high-profile organizations. Tell us about your military service and how the experience of the military shaped you as a human being.
Yeah, I really appreciate you letting me do that. First of all, I was trying to think about how I would articulate my service, and I'm an apprehensive leader. In school, I never grew up being the one that raised their hand first to be in charge. I was happy to be the gray man, just kind of in the crowd. And so I think that was good, though, because it helped me to listen and learn throughout my entire career. I was grounded in the infantry. I had some great bosses. One particular great boss, then Lieutenant Colonel Stan McChrystal, as my first commander in the 82nd, and then moved over to the Signal Corps, where I think I got to do a number of things, a very non-traditional signal career over my 30 years. But because I came in as an apprehensive leader, someone that would be in charge if I had to be, but didn't always have to be the one speaking, I think that allowed me to learn and listen throughout my career, which may have opened me up to some things that maybe I wouldn't have been if I had decided I knew the right answer all the time. And don't get me wrong, there are certainly people that may be listening to this podcast that would say, no, when he was lieutenant and captain, he told us what we were supposed to do and didn't listen to us. But I think I matured over the years. Maybe a little slow at times, but I think I did, and I learned to listen to those around me more than I had in the beginning.
Jeff, it's interesting. We have never actually served together, but we've served in a lot of the same organizations, and you have a phenomenal reputation. And as I've gotten to know you, I find you to be, and it's interesting how you describe yourself as a leader. I have found you to be incredibly thoughtful, incredibly caring, very, very good at what you do. And I'm a firm believer too that there are informal and formal leaders, and I'm sure you ascribe to this as well. So whether you're formally in a leadership position or not, you can still perform the role as a leader and have an opportunity to mentor and guide and help others. And I know you've done that consistently throughout your career. So I will tell you, your reputation and your credibility is stellar in not only the signal community, the communications community, but across the entire and any of the organizations that I had the privilege to work in, where you worked in. You have an incredible reputation, and I really feel privileged to have you on our show today. And so what I'd like to do is kind of transition to your transition. It's very recent. You're about 4 months into it. And I know you've put a lot of time, effort, thought, and energy into planning and preparing and executing that transition, because that's the kind of person you are. You put a lot of thought to the things you do. So I'd like to kind of have you share with the audience, what did you do to prepare for, to plan for, and then execute your transition? And even though you're only about 4 months into it, if there's anything that you've learned now that maybe you think you could have done differently or better to make that more effective, I think those are all great things to share with our audience, because that's what we want to do. Is one of the priorities of life after the military and of the Charlie Mike channel under Pivotal Moments is to facilitate effective transitions for the men and women in uniform who are moving out of the military.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me do that. Do you know Tim Day? You're familiar with Tim Day, right?
Yeah.
So Tim Day was my battalion commander when I was a company commander in 50th Signal Battalion, and the first soft guy, special operations guy I had come across, and he is the one that broke me and told me that it wasn't only the 82nd Tax Op and the Ranger Handbook. There were other ways of doing things. And so he and I have maintained a great friendship over the years. And at one point, he told me something to the effect of, pick your last job for your next job out of the military. And it's not a selfish thing. It's certainly not selfish to think about yourself, as long as you're still serving others as your primary motivation. And so I'll be honest, I listened to that and I took that to heart. And when I moved to JSOC, to Joint Special Operations Command, among other things, General Cavoli pointed his finger in my chest and said, "Don't forget, you're an Army officer and you need to help the Army." And so I noted that. And when I got over to JSOC, I did whatever I could for JSOC. I did whatever I could for the other services, because I felt it was my responsibility to give back to the other services. But I also thought that this might be it. I might not be going any further. And so I used the opportunity that JSOC provided me during engagements to make sure that people knew who I was and what I was about. Not selfishly, but I made sure I started to establish my network. And I also started to establish my I'll call it brand on LinkedIn. I started to build my coalition, and because I didn't want to go right from a career I have only known for 29 or 30 years to something brand new where it was all unknown. So I used JSOC. It sounds bad to say that, and I don't mean it in a bad sense, but I used the opportunity at JSOC and then the opportunity at 18th Airborne Corps, where we were working with some great people in industry to kind of bring the DevSecOps and the data and data understanding and new ways of doing things into the Corps. But I use that to meet other people and to expand my base further than just those in uniform, if that makes sense. And so that's what I tried to do. I think it worked fairly well. I landed. I'm very happy where I landed, but that's kind of what I did as I was getting out. Is I took advantage of the opportunities that were presented to me, but I never did it to where I was the centerpiece or it was about me. It was about the organizations and those I was serving primarily.
And I'll tell you, we've done, Lee, probably close to 20 recordings of episodes. Not all of those. Yeah, not all of those have been posted yet. But it's interesting, Jeff. This is the first time that kind of advice and that kind of perspective has come out. And I really applaud you for it, because I think you are absolutely spot on in your approach there. Clearly, we highly recommend that folks build out a very strong network, because that network is what's going to help them in their transition and find eventually the position they're going to be most comfortable with. And we certainly recommend folks start planning about 2 years out for their transition. But the focus has always been maybe the transition assistance program, and we're going to talk here in a little bit about the DoD SkillBridge program that I know you took part in. And I'm very interested in hearing your perspective on that. But the fact that you actually went into an assignment knowing that you might be moving on after about 2 or 3 years of that job, I think that is a great piece of advice for folks in our audience. And I absolutely applaud you for doing what you did. And that's using that time not only to serve in the position as the JSOC J6 and serve JSOC in that capacity, but you're also leveraging the opportunities you had to think about and prepare for your next steps. And I think that is great advice for folks in our audience. And again, I really applaud you for that. It's really the first time I've heard anybody kind of communicate. Lee, do you remember that coming out at all?
No.
Yeah.
Jeff, just to echo what Howie's saying, again, with all these interviews we do, we hear a lot of congruent, similar stories, right? And I was going to say, if we're going to write a book about transition, it's what Howie said. You need 2 years to prepare. You got to network before you get out. I do believe you're the first person that has come with that, which is awesome for the audience to hear. So, where do you think the clairvoyancy of that came from? Is that just from talking with other people, or is it just is that how your mind works? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I want to step back. I'll answer the question. I want to step back one point though. So when I was in JCSE, Joint Communication Support Element, where'd the clairvoyancy come? Well, our branch manager at the time told me I was driving in New York City, going to see the guys that were supporting Superstorm Sandy, and Jim Ternetti told me on the phone, "Hey, I'm on the fence. You're probably not going to make 06. You're probably done. Your evals are okay, but you're probably done." And so that's when it really hit me that, hey, this might be over. So I joined the Kiwanis Club. My dad was a Kiwanis Club member since I can remember. And I wanted to start to understand civilians better, because so many of us get out, and I will do my best. Even to the two of you, I will define Joint Special Operations Command. I don't say just JSOC and assume you know it. So I learned, I'll go back to me learning and listening. I learned over the years that we have to speak differently when we get out. So what I wanted to do was to join a civilian organization that allowed me to interact with the community, give back to the community, but also learn how the community talks, what motivates them, what they care about. And it taught me how to articulate myself in a different manner than just Army speak all the time. So then we'll jump forward to the clairvoyance question. It goes back once again to me listening to Tim Day. Yeah, I listen and I watch and I learn. I'm not perfect, but I listened to him, and I made sure that I was not going to put myself or my family at risk over the next 20 or 30 years, because I refused to adapt and learn a new way of doing things, if that makes sense.
It does. And I'll tell you, you've uncovered for us a new piece of advice that I've actually never heard before, which was interact with civilians before separate. I think that's really incredible advice and smart for the audience, because again, we've had multiple people talk about Army speak or military speak and how it doesn't translate to the civilian world. The fact you got out there ahead of time to learn that is massively proactive and very important. It also helps you create connections on the other side of that. There is a civilian side to this conversation too, where civilians don't understand Army speak, and it can be very intimidating at times. They don't want to admit, that I have no idea what you're talking about. I just know you're saying lots of acronyms, and that must make you important, So there's a two-way street there. I think that's incredible. Now, just to dig really quickly here, when you were driving up in Superstorm Sandy and you got that call, how many years out were you from actually separating at that point?
So this was, I took command in JCSE in 2010. So this was 2013. So, I had 21 years in, so I could get out at any time. But I think I had about 21 years in at the time. But for me, I wasn't ready to leave. So let's rewind 21 years. I remember the day I got commissioned, and I said this at my retirement speech. I wanted to make lieutenant colonel. I wanted to do 20 years. I wanted to do something good for somebody, and I wanted to still have my family. And so as Jim was telling me that, I said, well, I got to a 5. I got my 20 years. I think I've done some good things for people. I just need to make sure I don't lose my family. And so I'm not saying I came to peace with it. I did apply for Chick-fil-A twice and got denied twice to be a Chick-fil-A operator. But I don't know what they're looking for. I have no idea. And but then I met General Baker. So General John Baker was the J6 for CENTCOM, and I met him. I did something. I did what I usually do. I do my own thing, which may not be what the Army wants me to do. And I bucked the system, and he liked that. And so he kind of took me under his wing, and I credit my making senior service college to John Baker. He's the one that did it because he saw something that I didn't see.
Well, real quick, Howie, just 2 things. That's Chick-fil-A's loss, number 1. I think the way you just described your military career, the way you just described your military career I would have hired you on that. I just want to help people. I want to work. That would have got, and you did help a lot of people, obviously, in your service. And look, the reason I was asking that question, and then Howie, you can follow this up, is we have had people on this show that have prepared 2 years out, that have prepared not at all. Also had someone on a couple of weeks ago that was given 90 days notice that he would have to be leaving the military, absolutely 0 time to prepare. So I'm always curious to hear, because it seems to Howie to be all over the board, how much time people are given to prepare. Some are forced into it. Some have the window of opportunity, I would say. It's amazing to me how across the board that is. And again, Jeff, just so you know, my wife served in the Air Force. I always joke I'm the lowest rank in the military, male military spouse, but my experience was really being around active duty servicemen and women and having to watch them. You know what I mean? So I'm always amazed at the different stories, right, Howie? It's just there's so many different pathways, really in and out of the military. Now that I'm saying it, and they all have a different experience. That's why this show is so important. Because we're expanding the audience to how many possible ways this could happen.
Okay, can I tell you that I think one of the, I hate to say it like this, COVID is bad. Nothing is good about COVID. It has altered lives and probably the world forever. But COVID helped me because when I was in JSOC during COVID, General Howell, the commander at the time, said 10% manning, go. And as the 6, that was very difficult for us because we had to support everybody going forth across the Fayetteville area. And I had to do the same thing. So I would do VTCs, video teleconferences from my car in a park, and because we could. And so and I think the Department of Defense got very comfortable with people operating even more dislocated than SOF was before. And so during my transition, as I kind of stepped away, we all kind of powered down a little bit from having to be in one location and see each other all the time. That really helped me because I didn't go from seeing people every day, all the time, being in charge, to then not. It kind of faded, and that really that aided it for me. It really did.
Yeah, Jeff, and listen, there's something you mentioned in your earlier conversation that I want to reinforce as well. So the first thing again is the willingness, the thoughtfulness to plan ahead and start that planning. But I think the other thing you mentioned about not losing your family and doing things that would help you in that transition to best take care of your family. What I've found, it happened a bit to me. It's happened to so many people that I have personally mentored through this process, and it's happened to a number of folks who we've interviewed and recorded for these episodes. Is that they don't plan for their families. You know, in the military, we do a really good job when we're given a mission. We plan for that mission, and then we plan corollaries, contingencies. What if this goes wrong? We plan something for that. What if that goes wrong? We plan something for that. And I find that very few of us do a very good job of planning the contingencies or corollaries for our own personal lives. So I want to reinforce the fact that you did that. You had the foresight to do that, so that you could have an effective transition and take care of your family. I think that's a really important point that I want to reinforce and emphasize for our audience, and that is not being that's not putting yourself first. That's not losing your focus on your current job. It's just being realistic and preparing yourself for the next step, because we do it all the time in the military. So I applaud you for doing that, Jeff. That was very thoughtful of you, and it's a great point for us to reinforce for our audience. What I'd like to do, and something else you did that I find absolutely fascinating, because I've become more involved in this particular role that I'm in now, is the director of the Charlie Mike channel for Pivotal Moments. I've learned about the DoD SkillBridge program. I think it's a phenomenal opportunity for men and women in uniform of any rank. Right. So I know you took part in that program. So I'd love for you to number one, tell us why you chose to enter the program. I'd love for you to describe how it works and how it specifically worked for you, and what value you got as you executed your transition to your life after the military.
Yeah, thanks, Howie. So I credit Tom Oliver with everything I know about the SkillBridge program. I talked to him a couple of years ago, and he said he had done this internship thing, and I forget the company he worked for, and he didn't work for them for very long afterwards, but it helped him power down as well. He took the time and did the SkillBridge program. And so I knew when I left JSOC and moved over to 18th Airborne Corps, doing some great things, and I loved coming into work every morning, but I knew that this program existed out there. And so during SFL TAP, which I think could be a bit better, but during SFL TAP, they mentioned it, and that was it. And so I had to keep bringing it up.
Are you serious? They just mentioned it.
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
So I think the downside of COVID is that most of SFL TAP now is done virtually. So it's just a slideshow. It's just it didn't help me. I'll just be honest. It didn't help me a lot, and it was so fast and so far in advance. Many of the things that they told us in a slide, I had forgotten. And so I was having to call or go back to slides, and they just, it was glossed over. And that's neither here nor there. I'm not, knocking anybody. I just don't think it was emphasized as much as it could be. I personally think that they ought to discuss this program at the battalion command pre-command course and the brigade command pre-command course, because those battalion commanders and brigade commanders are going to be the ones that are the almost first in line when people are getting ready to get out or retire. Heck, it probably ought to go to the company command if there's a pre-command course anymore, because I don't think that our leaders know enough about it. That's why I post it as often as I can on LinkedIn. So I chose to do DoD SkillBridge because I had been watching LinkedIn profiles, and if you see many people now, some are not this way, but many of them are company A 6 months, company B 12 months, company C 18 months, company D 6 months, and us military individuals, maybe officers, bounce around from company to company so often. And I tell you, Howie, I didn't want that. I had a screening criteria for what I was looking for when I got out, and stability was, I think, my number 3 or 4. Stability was my number 3 or 4, because all I had known is one job. Sure, I moved jobs, but I had only known one employer. So the last thing I wanted to do was to have that unsurety that I was going to bounce from employer to employer every 6 months. I wanted to use, and I thought that happened because we get out and they always say, don't take the first job. And we all take the first job. And so I didn't want to be that guy taking the first job. So what I thought was, I'm going to interview with a number of companies for the SkillBridge program. And I took advantage of my opportunities during conference calls, I would just kind of lay it out there. Yeah, I'm probably going to get out. It'd be great if, you had this SkillBridge opportunity in your company, because I'd love to learn more about it. And a couple of companies bid on that and got back with me. So I used that to just get my name out there that I was looking for the opportunity. But I viewed SkillBridge as, for me, it was 72 days. It was a 72-day job interview. It was me interviewing the company, and it was the company interviewing me for 72 days. You can't get that in 5 or 6 one-hour conversations. You just can't. So I knew the culture of the company. I knew the values of the company. I knew what I was going to be able to give back to the company. I knew that they were a service-oriented organization, which is another thing that I wanted. That was one of my screening criteria. And so at the end of my 72 days, I was pretty sure that CrowdStrike, a leading cybersecurity company, but that CrowdStrike is where I wanted to go, because I believed in everything that CrowdStrike was about. And it turns out they believed in me. And so, I've been here for, I don't know, the 19th of July, so almost 2 months or so. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I really believe it's because I took advantage of the SkillBridge opportunity. And, there are plenty of people that do SkillBridge and they don't stay with the company. And that's okay, because they've had 2 or 3 or 4 months with an organization that was not the military to learn what T's and C's are, terms and conditions. I had no idea what T's and C's were. To learn the term headcount. I didn't know what headcount was. So if anything, they get out a better understanding of their value to an organization and what they're looking for. So they don't jump to the first company, then the second company, then the third company, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. And this is exactly what I was hoping would come out of this conversation. So let's kind of go back and kind of put, favorite term, I just pull the thread on a few things here. Something you mentioned earlier and just reminded me of it. Another thing I think you did really well that I highly, highly encourage the men and women in uniform right now to do, and it doesn't matter whether you're closing in on your retirement or thinking about getting out if you're not at a retirement point. And Lee and I just talked about this a day or so ago. I think the fact that you got yourself on LinkedIn and started engaging in your LinkedIn profile and connecting with others prior to your getting out was a very, very thoughtful thing to do. And I encourage men and women in uniform. I know a lot of folks seem to shy away, especially in military, shy away from social media. And I understand that to a degree, but LinkedIn to me is a great platform if you want to set yourself up for expanding and growing your professional network. That's what it's there to do. Then the fact that you had the foresight to do that, I think, is a great piece of advice for men and women in uniform. The second thing I would love for you to expand on, because this came out in a couple of other interviews, and it's something I personally did as well, but I want the audience to hear from you, is so as you were preparing for your transition, it sounds like you set up almost like a decision matrix, right? And you mentioned screening criteria. So I'd love for you to share, I don't know if you have all that available to you, Jeff, but and even if you don't have every particular criteria, I think that's something I personally did that I thought helped me kind of make the decision of who I wanted to go work with afterwards. And it turned out to be a good decision because I was with them for 6 years. And as you know, statistically, and we've brought this out before, folks like us who get out, and it doesn't have to be officers. I'm talking about folks who've had a 20 years or more in the service will change jobs 3-4 times in an 18 to 36 month period. So I would love for you to take us through that decision-making process that you established for yourself, because I think that could be incredibly valuable to our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So my number one was culture and values. My culture and values had to intersect with the organization's culture and values. And if they didn't, then we were going to have a problem. And I refuse to compromise my values. I won't do it. That's not fair to me. It's not fair to my family. It's not fair to anybody. So culture and values were my number one. Job satisfaction was number two. I know, and you can talk to my wife, if I'm not happy at work, if there are problems at work, I bring it home. I know I do. And she knows when I love my job because I'm much happier to be around. And so I knew that for the rest of my life, I needed to have something that I was happy doing. Now am I going to do what I'm doing right now at CrowdStrike for 20, 30 years? I'm not. Absolutely not. There is going to be a part of me that wants to get job satisfaction from really giving back and serving others. I've already taken my USO training, so I plan on doing USO service and things like that. But job and I get good satisfaction from doing that. Not a job, but it's still satisfaction. Number 3 was stability. I already mentioned that. It does make me nervous. Coming from very humble beginnings, we didn't have a lot of money. Money does scare me. Money makes me nervous. And so I knew that whatever we did, I wanted to be stable because I still had 2 kids to get through college. Well, one in college right now, one in high school. And I wanted to make sure they were okay. And so stability was my number 3. My number 4 was service. Wherever I went, the company had to have a culture of service. Now, as I said, culture and values is number 1, but service is in there. Service to me is separate from culture and values. And CrowdStrike has a great service organization. In fact, we have a Veterans of CrowdStrike that does a lot of work in the community. And then we have a foundation that does a lot of work for organizations across the globe. So I'm really happy that they have a foundation that I can participate in and give back. And then my last one is compensation. We all want to be paid. I don't, and I wanted to make sure that whatever the compensation was, it was enough to take care of my family. Because I go back to my last thing on success. I still have my family. I want to make sure my family is taken care of. So those are the criteria that I used when I was evaluating organizations.
Yeah, and listen, I think that is all incredibly valuable information for our audience to leverage, because I think you are spot on. It's interesting. My first criteria was culture as well. Right. And exactly what you describe for yourself is the way I would describe it for myself. And I think that's why you're going to be successful. And I was fortunate enough to pick a company that I worked with for 6 years. And Lee's heard me say this before. Had they not sold my business unit to another organization, I would probably still be working for the Morgan Franklin Corporation to this day. That's how much I believed in the leadership team that ran that company, the culture and values that they established inside that company, and it matched my personal values. So good on you. I think that is awesome, and I think you put a very thoughtful approach into your transition plan, and I know that's going to pay off for you, Jeff. Hey, the other thing I'd like to bring out, and it sounds like you're experiencing that right now, is something else you mentioned about the value of the SkillBridge program. One of the challenges I faced, both of us had reasonably successful military careers. So that wasn't an issue in terms of leadership, how to build a strong bond with the team and motivate them to get the mission done and so on and so forth. But what I really struggled with was the business side of being in a corporation or in an organization, because I really didn't understand it. And I really, really struggled with it. But the thing I love about the DoD SkillBridge program is it gives you an opportunity, like you said, whether it's 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, up to, I think it can go sometimes as many as 6 months. But the bottom line is it exposes you to now the business side of an organization, whether you choose to work for them or not. Is not, I think, the relevant thing. It's that you are now going to be exposed to business concepts and business dealings that you will have not been experienced with or exposed to in the military, that is going to help you in your transition to whatever organization you decide to go with. So why more people would not take advantage of this opportunity is beyond me, because I think for that reason alone, I see tremendous value in the DoD SkillBridge program. So once again, great decision and preparation on your part, and I'm glad you're able to share some of that experience with us.
Hey, Howie, here's the dirty secret with the DoD SkillBridge program. When you want to do the DoD SkillBridge program, you contact the office and they say, go to the website and you see where the opportunities are. So I went to Fort Bragg around Fayetteville. Cisco Systems had a sales opportunity that I didn't want to do. There was one with a radio company and a couple others. They are primarily geared toward your probably junior enlisted, middle enlisted, maybe junior officer. They are, but nobody tells you, hey, if you don't find something you want, find something you want. And so all you have to do is find a company that is willing to take you. You do a couple of pieces of paper, you submit it through the SkillBridge program, the IMCOM, Installation Management Command lawyers, they bless off on it, and you're good. There was no opportunity inside CrowdStrike for me. There was an engineer, there was another cloud guy, something like that, but there was not what I wanted to do. And what I wanted to do was see the company. I told CrowdStrike, I want to see mergers and acquisitions. I want to talk to the lawyers. I want to talk to the marketing department. I want to go to the mailroom. I want to do everything. And CrowdStrike said, whatever you want to do, you talk to everybody. They gave me a couple projects to work on, which I loved, but they allowed me to be free inside of CrowdStrike. And some other companies I talked to wanted me to work a specific thing. And I didn't want to do that. That wasn't going to teach me the skills I thought I needed.
That's even more valuable information. So you actually, so this is an opportunity to take some initiative. This is for our listeners. So you're not limited to the opportunities you'll see on the SkillBridge program website. You can actually create your own opportunity if you're willing to take the initiative, and you can actually create your own contract with that employer if you're willing to have those discussions and take the initiative. That's incredibly valuable information, Jeff. I really appreciate your bringing that out.
Right. And Jeff, it goes back to something you said earlier in the episode, which is they're not just interviewing you, you're interviewing them. Not enough people take that approach when it comes to work. There's this kind of master servant type attitude, and that's not the truth. If you're going to go work, I always say this with people even going to graduate school or even college, you'd be paying a lot of money to go to this school. You should probably interview the school, make sure the school fits, not just the name on the wall when you walk in. But I wanted to reiterate the 5 things that you said earlier, because I think that's important too. We're going to joke a little bit later about what your book title would be, but you really should think about getting this on paper for other veterans, because I'm going to read them. Number 1, culture and values. Number 2, job satisfaction. Number 3, stability. Number 4, service. Number 5, the bottom, compensation. I think that's brilliant. I think that's an amazing way to look at it. I don't think it's just for transitioning service people. I think that's a really great list for anyone looking for a job. Much less somebody in the military. We always say the military people that serve are obviously more qualified to follow that priority list probably, but it's a great list regardless. And then above all, you said this, what success to you is your family being taken care of. I mean, that is a strong priority list and a strong way of looking at this. And look, at the end of the day, for everybody listening, as a business owner, and Jeff, we're going to get into your business in a minute. It is not what you do. It's not how much you make. It's who you do it with. That is really the key to happiness in work. It's who are you working with? Do they have a mission? Are you willing to do something together? And in the military, you are taught to do that. When you get to the civilian world, not many companies understand that. They're out there. They're absolutely out there. But you, as someone who is transitioning, should search for something like that. Don't just jump to the first thing that's on your platter, unless that you get lucky and they have what they want. So, Howie, I'm going to make a joke with you too. You'd said that you'd still be working with Morgan Franklin if they hadn't sold your division. I mean, we still kind of are working with the Morgan half of that.
That's very true.
So Pivotal Moments is run by Bob Morgan, who's the half of the Morgan Franklin, and so that you're still there technically. But that's a way to bring it full circle, and you're absolutely right. There you go. And listen, it kind of gets back to your first criteria, though, right? The culture of the organization. When I looked at the Morgan Franklin Corporation, I had probably 3 or 4 different opportunities I was seriously considering. Once I really set my screening criteria and prioritized them, and culture was the number 1 criteria. Once I looked at the way that Bob ran that company, because he was the president and CEO, and of course he was one of the co-founders as Bob Morgan of Morgan Franklin. And to this day, we maintained a very close friendship. That's how much I thought of him. And look, the other thing is,
as I told you, when I struggled with my transition and learning the business side of things, it was Bob Morgan and Rob Franklin who used to get out behind her desk almost on a daily basis and walk the floor and come talk to the people on the floor, to include me. And when they realized that I was struggling, they made a commitment to me, and they didn't have to do this, right? They made a commitment to me to help me through that transition, which further reinforced that I made a great decision. And because of that decision, there was a friendship that formed that carried us through the years. And what, 15 years later, or maybe about 15 years later.
Don't date yourself too much, Howie. I mean,
but because Bob started this organization, Pivotal Moments, and it was explained to me I knew I wanted to be a part of that organization, and a good portion of my decision making was based on how much I thought of Bob Morgan as a leader, how much I thought of him as someone I knew shared the same value system I did. So, yeah, you're right. I'm working for him again.
There you go. I think we're working for each other in this type of organization. But Jeff, let's get back to you. You had said this earlier that you were joking before the episode of not doing shameless plugs. But I want to know, what is CrowdStrike? Tell me a little bit about that. Tell me what you do there. I'm interested. It's an awesome name, awesome logo. Yeah. I just have to know.
So I will tell you, and I chose CrowdStrike specifically. So CrowdStrike, leading cybersecurity company, started out of McAfee. George Kurtz came out of McAfee because he wanted a new way of protecting networks. And so they began an incident response, IR business. They'd go in, do some incident response if an attack happened. And what we realized was that the small agent, the program we use to do incident response, could do a whole lot more. And so it kind of blossomed into a next generation antivirus cybersecurity company that is cloud native, cloud first, and uses the power of the cloud. So that's kind of where we want to strike and prevent things from happening, but we're using the power of the cloud, which is crowdsourced, if you want to use that. Right. So CrowdStrike is kind of how they got their name. But cool. It is a great company, and so I chose it strategically because I didn't want to be that guy that had done defense for 30 years and did defense for the next 20 or 30 years. I didn't want to. And I told people when the music stopped, I wanted to have a chair to sit in, because contracts, fade, they come and go, you get moved around. And so I chose a great corporate company that has a huge enterprise business with a burgeoning federal business. So I'm in the public sector, state, local, higher education, and federal, both federal civilian and federal DoD. So I am in the public sector, but I'm getting to work with hospitals and higher education institutions. We went and talked to West Point last week. We're getting to work with state and local governments, and I can use the experience and the understanding I have of how we did things in the military, what I saw as the CIO for JSOC, and impart that upon CIOs, chief information officers, and CISOs, chief information security officers, to help them on their cyber journey. So inside public sector, I'm a member of, there's 5 of us now we call the industry business unit, and we're there to help have a foot in both camps. We're former CIOs and CISOs who know what the challenges are that they have, because we had those same challenges, and we can help the company understand the challenges of the client. I use the term client. I will never use the term customer. I'm a customer of McDonald's. If I want to go to McDonald's, we want partnerships, good teammates, because that's what I wanted when I was in JSOC. And so we understand the corporate side of it, and we can help kind of straddle the two sides to make a much better team, be a much better teammate when we're working with industry.
Well, Jeff, I'll tell you this, for the people listening, you can probably hear the excitement in his voice. It's also visibly, apparent how much you love this company and how powerful it's been in your life. So I want you to know that we can see that. And I think that says quite a bit. All right. When you ask people what they do, they don't typically, I get a lot of, oh, well, you're visibly excited about what you do. So moving on from there, we also want to talk about this, because as part of your post-military transition, you've created your own company, 5-9 Solutions. So share with the audience the thought process for starting your own business. How did you put that structure in place? What's the future of the company? Tell us a little bit about 5-9 Solutions.
Okay, so I am not an entrepreneurial spirit. I am very conservative, and I'm not a risk taker. So I don't want anyone to think, hey, I'm this guy that's going to go out there and start new companies and establish new brands and build the next Morgan Franklin. That's not me. So I'll be honest, completely honest on why I did it and what I did. I was talking to Chuck Daly, and I think you probably know Chuck, Howie.
Know him very well. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was talking to Chuck Daly one day and told him I was getting out. He said, "Hey, have you started your LLC?" I said, I don't know. I've heard about that, but I'm not sure." He's like, "The first, you have to start an LLC because you're going to need a tax haven." So I did it. I did it, one, for the tax haven, because you can then participate in your company's 401k, because you'll max out another 401k. So I did it to try and put away, if I do it, I haven't done it yet, but to potentially put away additional money to take care of my family. So I guess once again, we go back to the, long-term care of the family. So I started it so that I had some place to put money if I needed to take care of my family. I was also approached by a couple of people that said, hey, can we get you to do some consulting? And then I was talking to some others who said, hey, you need to have some way of people billing you. And I said, for what? Well, for consulting. And so that was another reason I started the LLC, was because I wanted some way of protecting my family if I was going to do any work for somebody else, so they couldn't touch my retirement. They couldn't touch my assets. I wanted to establish an organization. And so I have been approached by a few who said, look, we'd love to start invoicing. Do you have something? And I said, yes, I do. So the future is not to hire 15, 20, 100 people, become a big business. That's not what I want to do. I want to have it there so that I have a vehicle to help some organizations based on the experience that I may have, or the network I may have to help someone else. That's really why I did it.
Yeah, listen, that's great advice. I think when a lot of people talk about building an LLC or building a business, that is not where their mind goes. It's about empire building and creating the next big thing. I love that you're being honest about that as a financial security for you and your family. And that is one of the great parts of, and I can speak to this, of living in America, is it is very hard to do that in other countries, right? It is very easy to create your own LLC in this country if you want to. And it's a blessing because of what you just said. There are financial aspects of it that can greatly benefit not just you, but your family. And as you said, you never know when work's going to come up that you need to just charge for consulting, especially out of the military. So I think that's brilliant. And I appreciate your candor with that. Yeah, look, you can create a business in a few hours at your computer.
Yep. For $165, I think it cost me.
It's incredible. The resources that you have, and it doesn't even have to be in the state that you're living in, which is completely illegal. Legal, just in case that came across wrong. So I think that's a great, something we should dive deeper into in another episode, Howie, is the financial stability of that. Before we move to the final question, I did allude to this earlier. So every guest that comes on our show, Jeff, I create a book title for them, right? So if you were to write a book, I try and use my marketing background and give you a title that, if you were walking by it in a Barnes and Noble, you'd go, I got to at least open the cover of that thing to see what that's about. Right now, I will say again, joking aside, that your standards, the culture, values, job satisfaction, stability, service, and compensation, that is something that actually should be written for all transitioning military members. That is, if you take one thing out of this episode, and you'll take more than one, that was the thing. But your book title is easy. It came early. I've actually already said it. But when I'm walking by in the Barnes and Noble, I want to walk by the aisle and I want to pick up the book, Chick-fil-A's Loss, a memoir.
Yeah, I was thinking about some Chick-fil-A title. I'll be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Chick-fil-A's Loss, and we could think of a catchy subtitle, but I'd pick that up. Like, how did they lose? And you're open on Sundays. So I'm sure you could make a pretty okay chicken sandwich. They do the chicken sandwich really well, to be fair. I enjoy Chick-fil-A's chicken sandwich. Yeah, Chick-fil-A's Loss, a memoir by Jeff Worthington. That is the title of your book. I'm ready to pick it up. Again, royalties can be sent to my LLC should you decide to do that, or just donate them to Howie. Either way, we win.
Oh, Lee, this is, I'll tell you, your creativity amazes me, man. I don't know how you do this every episode, but somehow you do it. And it always gives me a smile, man.
Jeff,
Hey,
I gotta tell you, so sometimes these things come really early in the episode, Howie, to be fair. Like sometimes we had a guest on a few weeks ago that was very monotone. And we were getting to the point I was about to, I had nothing. And like framework, he just dropped a little bit of gold about 10 seconds before I had to do this. I was like, that's it. There we go. But I appreciate you helping me out there by the first 10 minutes of the episode.
God, the added stress you must have doing these episodes. I haven't thought about that.
I used to have hair, but these book things, man,
Yeah, you've put yourself in a corner, man, so. Hey, Jeff, what I for our final question, what I'd like to transition to is kind of getting back to the vision of Pivotal Moments, which is to strengthen mental fitness worldwide. And I mean, as I've had my own struggles, I've come to realize we all have struggles with mental fitness at times and in varying degrees. So listen, if you're willing to share information, if you've had struggles with your own mental fitness or you've seen others struggle with their mental fitness, if you'd be willing to kind of share whatever experiences or stories you've had, how you've managed, your way through those challenges and struggles, and what do you do to strengthen your own mental fitness? I think those are important things, again, for our audience to hear and learn about as they kind of navigate this challenge themselves.
Yeah. So now we get to the meaty part of the conversation. So, so I guess we'll just start off with about a year and a half ago, I was going to kill myself. And I had a significant emotional event, professional event happen. I'll leave it at, because it's public knowledge. I was departing JSOC to go be the chief of signal and the commandant of the signal corps of the signal regiment. That was announced. And so I had some things happen that really hit me hard, because I had never had that happen before. And so I was completely lost. I found myself shaking a lot. I lost weight. I wasn't talking to anybody. If anybody that knows me knows that PT is important. PT time is sacred. Physical training time is sacred to me. I would go on a run about a mile into it, say, screw this, and walk back. So I wasn't working out. It was really bad. And my family knew something was going on. And so one day in JSOC, I was sitting there at my office. I had walked up the steps to my office on the third floor shaking. And I sat down at my desk and I said, okay, I'm going to write the note. I'm going to bring my gun to work and I'm going to shoot myself in the head here at work. And that'll teach everybody. And when I said that, I was also considering going into Mott Lake. We're all familiar with Mott Lake that have been at Fort Bragg. That's where all the ammunition goes that you don't want to take back to the arms room, I hear. But I had contemplated going into Mott Lake to go swimming and drown, because that way, I told myself, my family would get my insurance, because it wouldn't be a suicide, it'd be an accidental death. And I refused to Google how to commit suicide, because I was afraid they'd look up my internet searches and see that I did something like that and my family would not get taken care of. And so I'm sitting there at my desk that day, and I said, holy crap, what am I doing? What am I thinking? And I said, I have to listen to what I have told soldiers over and over again for years. And so I got up, I walked over to the chaplain's office behind the headquarters on the JSOC compound there. And I just broke down to the chaplain and told him what was going on, how it was affecting me, what I was going to do, how I was going to do it. And he asked if I would go see the doc, the JSOC doc. So I walked over to see Carl Young, the doc. I told him what was going on. I mean, my stomach was hurting. I had heartburn all the time. I thought I was having heart attacks. Turns out it was all just stomach problems. And he said, look, I need you to talk to the psych. And so I went and talked to Crystal Redding during my retirement ceremony. I invited her to it. I had her sit in the front row, and I mentioned her by name because everybody needs a Crystal Redding. And she took care of me. She let me yell and she let me cry, and she listened to me. I was telling her things that I thought I was, because that's what I was. And she would, tell me, no, you're a good person. And so she helped me like nobody else. But what really bothered me was I was afraid of not only one, what people thought of me, especially quitting and retiring, but also what my family thought of me. That was probably the worst thing. What my family's going to think I'm a quitter. My family's they're going to lose faith and confidence in me. And so one day I came home, and they knew something was going on, but not really. I did a poor job of hiding it. I'd spend hours in bed just listening to podcasts and sitting there, and I would pray for the rain, because the rain gave me an excuse not to go outside and do anything. It was horrible. I was in a depression, and so I told them, look, I thought about killing myself. This is why, and I think I want to get out of the Army. And it was awesome. So my wife said, oh, thank God. Now we can finally do something else. And my son, my youngest son, said, can I pick the next house? Can I pick it? And my older son was like, oh, this is awesome. Now we don't have to move anymore. You can see all my soccer games. So I saw every soccer game that season of his senior year. In fact, I was the, I don't know, I named myself the head of media relations and chief videographer, because I was the one on top taking the videos, making all the comments that the team liked to listen to. But so when I got that off my chest to them, that was a relief, because they didn't look down on me. They were happy there was a next chapter. And so a lot of relief there. Talking to Crystal really helped a lot. And so I had a regular cadence with her. When I left JSOC and went over to 18th Airborne Corps, I had to transition to the general population counselors that they had behind the hospital there at Womack. And so I made a point to wear my uniform with my colonel's rank on it and walk in there and stand in line with the soldiers to tell them, I'm here to see Dr. So-and-so, because I know they heard me. You hear someone saying, I'm here to see doctor, this is my problem. And I wanted to make sure that the E4s, the E5s, whoever they were, heard that there was an 06 that had a problem and was willing to go get it fixed. Because I know the way soldiers talk. Somebody went back to their barracks and said, holy cow, you're not going to believe this. There was a colonel in there talking to somebody, talking to a doc. And so when I sought help, when I did exactly what we tell people to do, when I allowed myself to be vulnerable to the doctors and my family, that really helped me to get back on track. And my son, who had had some problems a couple of years earlier when we were in Germany, and we were seeing a doctor for him, he saw me filling out a sheet one day, and he said, what are you filling out? Is that the same sheet I filled out? And I said, Timothy, it's just a sheet I have to fill out for the doctor. And he said, I can help you with that, Dad, because I know what you're going through. And that was really helpful. When my son was willing to sit down and help me get through the most difficult point of my 51 years of existence at that point.
Well, listen, I just want to thank you, Jeff. You got me a little emotional now.
Yeah, look, I'll jump in here too, guys. Jeff, thanks for being vulnerable. So often in society, Howie, just let me know when you're good. Vulnerability is looked at as a weakness, and it's quite the opposite. In any team environment, whether that be your family, sports, military, your ability to trust each other and be vulnerable to each other is probably the greatest strength of the team. And unfortunately, for too long, there's been a stigma around that.
Yep.
And you never know where, how, when that help will come from. Look, I'm a father. My son is 7. My daughter's 5. Not as quite far down the line professionally yet, but that my son helps me, my daughter helps me see things in myself I never knew I could. And I think that, one of the other things I taking from what you're saying, and everyone's experience is different when it comes to mental health and mental fitness, is that when you get to the point you feel like you're completely alone, it's almost impossible to realize you're not, that there are people that care about you.
Absolutely. Yep.
You know, one of the most eye-opening things to me that I've learned actually really recently in the last few years was when it comes to something like suicide, you get a lot of people that say, well, how could you think that way? Or they, you know, kind of have that response. And someone who had been through a similar situation said to me one time, and this was extremely eye-opening to me. They said, you don't understand. From my point of view in that moment, I'm helping everybody by not being here. That was the way that person had felt. And I never had looked at it like that, that from their point of view at that time, it was a selfless act to help other people, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't even about them. And that changed my perspective on this drastically. And I think it's amazing that you were at that point. And again, we talked about clairvoyancy earlier. Something divine tapped you and said, no, go talk to somebody. And you did. You took the action. And again, I'm not in any way trying to say that I understand that. That's not where these conversations go. It's you're telling us this, and we're learning from it. And if anyone listening to this is in that kind of boat, there are people that want to help you. There are people that need you. You are not alone. Even if the voices in your head are telling you that, you are not alone. And there is a way back from that. So again, as you said, when you were able to make yourself vulnerable, not only did you get to where you wanted to be, but then your servant leadership took over, and you wanted to make sure other people knew this as well. And, you know, the truth is this, and then I'll be quiet. There is no age, there's no time, there's no situation where anyone is 100% mentally fit.
Yeah.
Things can happen to you at any point in your life. I call them earth-shaking moments, right? They can completely change you at any point in your life, right? And whether you're a colonel or, you know, just starting out, it doesn't matter, right? Things can happen. Anyway, go ahead, Jeff. I want to give you the floor.
Yeah. So you know, you asked Howie, you asked how I deal with it, or how do I continue my mental health or mental fitness now? So I'll tell you, I told somebody, hey, I'm gonna tell this story. I need to make sure everybody knows this kind of thing. And somebody said, no, that's the last thing you want to do. Do not tell anybody. And I have been very open and very public about telling my story. I kind of told it on LinkedIn. I mentioned it during my retirement ceremony. So that's how I keep my mental fitness. Is I want to make sure that everybody knows so they can recognize it. And maybe one person I talk to says, holy crap, you know what? I need to go talk to somebody. And maybe I've saved a life.
Right.
And so that's one, how I get through it. And two, it's things like I'm doing right now here with you guys. You know, I told the company, hey, I know I was here in DC. I'm not going to go home. I'm going to stay here. I'll work out of this Airbnb, but I'm going to be with my son for the week. I'll probably catch COVID, which I haven't, but I'm going to take care of him for the week or the 10 days. And they didn't bat an eye. And so that's another way I help myself is, you know, I'm here with my family, spending as much time as I can with them.
That is mental strength defined. I mean, I really mean that. Like, people tell you, don't tell anybody. What you're doing is mental strength. We don't do that enough. That is the stigma, right? Of don't tell anybody about your faults or your failures. Why can we not learn from each other? And I wouldn't even call this a failure. Like, why can we not learn from each other's experience? Where is this wall that we've put up? Where was that created? And why can't we bring it down? Again, trust has to be established. Trust is a big part of this. I mean, you don't want to just open up to anybody all the time, you know, depending on the situation. But you know, if you're in a trusted environment and someone can learn, and you probably have saved lives, Jeff, you probably have, right? Or as another guest we had on, Jeremy Mulder, he said that, you know, he has an organization to prevent veteran suicide. And he said, look, it's not even about preventing suicide, it's elongating life. Like, you know, I can't guarantee, you know, how long anyone's going to be here, but if I can give somebody 2 more years with their family or a lifetime, you know. So again, there's a lot of stuff here. I want to just say it one more time, and then Howie, I'll throw it to you, is that I just really appreciate your willingness to talk about this. Because that really is, I wouldn't say solution, but that is mental strength, what you're doing here, right? To have the guts, to have the mentality, and to have, again, the clairvoyancy to understand that this can help people, that your experience can help people. And I am 1,000,000% sure that your family was obviously happy that you came to them and that they're supporting you. And it sounds like you have a wonderful family, and I hope the soccer season
Yeah, I
went
do.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, and Jeff, first of all, Lee, you brought out most of the points I would have made, and I appreciate you bringing those out. And Jeff, we've traded things back and forth on LinkedIn or other social media platforms, or when you and I have spoken in the past. And I have to reiterate something Lee said, and I think it's you have shown incredible personal courage. I think it's really important that we know that talking about things like this not only helps us, but I think it helps others. And your willingness to be that vulnerable and that courageous, and I agree with Lee, this is absolutely courageous of you to do this. I think that is what makes you so special in my mind. I also appreciate the fact that you took opportunities very, very publicly, not just with your family, to talk about this, which I know most people are not willing to do. Another thing that I think it's really important is that I think these challenges are not rank dependent, right? There are probably a number of men and women in senior leadership positions, whether in or out of the military, that struggle with challenges, and because of that position of leadership, are not willing to talk about it because they think it's going to show weakness. And the fact is that we're all human and we all deal with this, and we have to deal with it and challenge it and confront it in the ways that'll help us manage it. And I just think your story is absolutely incredible, and I appreciate your willingness to bring this out. I know this is going to help other people who choose to listen to this podcast. And I just want to thank you for that, Jeff.
Hey, you're very welcome.
And I think many of us deal with this challenge of being vulnerable. And the more research that I do, the more reading I do, I realize just how critical that is. And Jeff, I want to publicly invite you to be an ambassador for the Charlie Mike channel and help us tell this, our story and this kind of a story. And I think you'd known, you introduced me to Dr. Crystal Redding, and I've been in touch with her, and I've invited her as well to work with Pivotal Moments and with the Charlie Mike channel as kind of a medical consultant, because I think
Awesome.
I think it's important for us to have that kind of credibility, and someone with that kind of experience that's helping us, kind of tell these stories and help others. And I would love for you to be a part of our organization in whether it's as an ambassador, as an advisor. I really value you as a person. I value you as a leader. And I think and I would incredibly value having you on the Charlie, Mike, and the Pivotal Moments team. So I just want to make that, and you don't have to answer that now. That's not intentional to put you on the spot. I just want you to know.
Howie, let's put you on the spot. What are your culture and values first, please? And then we'll get to job satisfaction after that.
Wait, say that again, Lee?
As I'm going through Jeff's process here. Please tell us about your culture and values. Then we'll get to job satisfaction, stability, service, and compensation.
Hey, listen, I think that Jeff and I are more similar in many ways than we are different. As I've listened to Jeff's story here today, it really makes me connect with you even more than I thought I was connected with you before this episode. So again, I really value you as a leader, as an individual, and I think you listen. Part of what motivates you is helping others. That has come across loud and clear. And let me tell you something, Jeff, you are doing that in spades. You did it in uniform. You're doing it out of uniform. And you're going to continue to do that as long as you're as long as you're with us, man. You are making a difference. That is why, that's one of the reasons that I was so attracted to you and wanted to bring you on this episode, because I knew you just had a powerful, you could have a powerful impact on our audience, and I want to thank you for that.
Oh, you're very welcome. Yeah, I hope I have.
You have. I will confirm that right now. And here's my guarantee to Jeff, is that we're all kind of in the same area. To discuss this, we're going to go to Chick-fil-A. I'm buying. All right. You can get whatever you want. And we'll introduce them to the new book coming out, Chick-fil-A's Lost.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, Jeff, phenomenal guest. We're going to broadcast this episode out to as many people as possible, because you have a message that needs to be heard, not just should be heard. And I'll tell you this, it goes way beyond life after the military. It is a societal message that needs to be heard. And I really believe that people like you are going to be leading us as a species. I'm not saying that lightly, towards better pastures, because the truth is that when we can learn to work together, when we can become less egoic as a society, when we can learn how to be more vulnerable to each other, that will solve a lot of issues that we're facing together today. And again, you are a trailblazer in my mind. I know we're complimenting you a lot, but I really mean what I'm saying. You are a trailblazer in that ground. And I'll tell you this, Howie knows this. My father, I'm very close with my parents, and they're getting older, and my father just drops these little pearls of wisdom from time to time. And one of the ones I remember when I was younger was, he said, "Look, boys don't cry, men do." And I don't know where he got that from. I don't know. I don't even remember why. I must have been upset about something, but that really hit me when I was a teenager, right? Many years ago, that, he was teaching me to be vulnerable. And like that's why I said, you embody that, sir. And just echoing what Howie said, thank you so much for telling your story today. It's of tremendous value, not to us, but everybody listening.
Hey, you're very welcome.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. You've been listening to Life After the Military, which is powered by Pivotal Moments, a company that Howie still works for after 15 years. And you can learn more about the organization at pivotalmoments.org for more inspirational, entertaining, and of course, educational content. We don't want you guys to miss out on that. Make sure you know that you can go there. We have modules set there for mental health, mental fitness, and other things. Check them out. For Howie Cohen and Jeff Worthington, I'm Lee Elias. Thanks so much for joining us, and make sure to keep an eye out for more episodes soon, wherever podcasts can be heard. We are everywhere. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.